Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh, and welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Now, this is a live show where we do take in your questions. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, please send them in via the WhatsApp number. It should be below there. And then we've got a QR code over there that'll take you straight to the WhatsApp page. If you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, put your questions through in the comment section. And inshallah, myself and the Sheikh will be able to discuss and answer any of your queries. If you'd like to call into the studio, you can call in 0203 515 0199. If you're outside the UK, please use the WhatsApp number to call, and inshallah you'll be put through into the studio live. Now, this is the holy month of Rajab, and before we begin, we would like to send our condolences to the Imam of our time and also to the Muslim Ummah on the istishhad of Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam. And inshallah, to discuss more on Imam al-Hadi, we have Sheikh Ali Maash. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
How are you this evening, Sheikhna?
Alhamdulillah.
Sheikhna, Imam al-Hadi, the grandfather of the Imam of our time, has a great legacy, you know, being moved from his home to Samarra, you know, and I've also heard many things, including he's arguably the second most revered Imam in regards to dua and you know, introduction and introductions to dua, where Imam Sajjad was very well known for Sifa Sajjadiyya and the du'as. Imam al-Hadi was the next one who had many compilations and so forth. Sheikhna, a little bit please about our 10th Imam.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين عظم الله أجوركم وأجورنا to this the sad occasion of the Shahada of Imam al-Hadi salamullah alayh. The Imams of Ahlul Bayt are infallible, so this is a great loss for Islamic Ummah, in which a great Imam like the Imam al-Hadi salamullah alayh to pass away and to be martyred because of his aqeedah, because of his attachment to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because of the jealousy of the government, the Abbasid governments in his time, and to many reasons that the enemies would not like to see Nurullah Azza wa Jal is being spread over the world. They want to spread, you know, the enemies of Ahlul Bayt, the tyranny, dictatorship, corruption, against, you know, the mu'mineen, the mu'minat, against the sacred places and lands and people. So Imam alayhi salam had a great legacy, as you mentioned, his du'as, and indeed I'm going to mention something important with regard to the Imam's ziyarah. Imam alayhi salam left with us a great treasure, and that is the Ziyarah Jami'ah al-Kabira, the grand and the great Ziyarah of al-Jami'ah. Of course, this Ziyarah, as mentioned by many ulama, as mu'tabar, credible, and even sahih Ziyarah. I'm going to mention some of those ulama in which they have given a credit to the Ziyarah. Number one, Sayyid Abdullah Shubbar, rahimahullah. giving a credit to the ziyarah. Number 2, Sheikh Muhammad Taqi al-Majlisi, the father of the Allama Muhammad Baqir al-Majlisi, and his son as well, Sheikh Muhammad Baqir al-Majlisi, and Sheikh Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Hur al-Amili, again, the one who wrote Wasail al-Shia, this great book of the hadith about the ahkam. And other ulama as well, giving as a credit, as a i'tibar and sahih to the chain and the sanad of ziyarat al-Jami'a al-Kabira. I'm going to mention a few lines of the ziyarah.
Please.
When it comes to this part of the ziyarah, the Imam says, وَأَشْهَدُ أَنَّكُمْ الْأَئِمَّةُ الرَّاشِدُونَ. I also bear witness that you are all the Imams rightly guiding. The true rightly guided khulafa and Imams are Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. The 12 Imams of Ahlul Bayt from Rasulullah lineage and his progeny, salawatullah alayhim ajma'een. Al-Mahdiyun al-Ma'sumun, well guided, infallible. Indeed, the Khalifa and the Imam must be well guided and infallible. Al-Mukarramun al-Muqarrabun, highly revered, drawn near to Allah Azza wa Jal. They have to have some kind of attachment to Allah Azza wa Jal. Muqarrabun Allah Azza wa Jal. Al-Muttaqun as-Sadiqun, pious and Sadiq, truthful. Al-Mustafun al-Muti'un lillah, well chosen and obedient to Allah Azza wa Jal. They obey Allah Azza wa Jal to the utmost stage. Al-Qawwamuna bi-amrih, establishing his rule. They are Ahlul Bayt of Isma. They came in order to establish Allah's rule on earth. Al-Amiluna bi-iradatih, putting into practice his will, Allah's will. Al-Faizuna bi-karamatih, and winning his honoring. So you can see that's how the role of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in leading the ummah, leading the world by the choice of Allah Azza wa Jal, by the selection of Allah Azza wa Jal. Istafakum bi'ilmih, he chose you on account of his knowledge. So Allah's istafa. Inna Allah istafa Adam wa Nuh to the rest of the Anbiya, and Allah chose them. And he also chose their vicegerents, like Harun and Musa, as wazir, vicegerent of Musa alayhi salam, Harun alayhi salam. وَارْتَضَاكُمْ لِغَيْبِهِ, approved you of you to be maintaining his unseen knowledge. Again, ghaibullah Azza wa Jal, Allah gave them. That Allah would not give his ghaib إِلَّا مَنْ ارْتَضَى مِنْ الرَّسُولِ, unless he would select one of his vicegerents or the messengers in which he would give his ghaib to them. وَاخْتَارَكُمْ لِسِرِّهِ, and he selected you to keep his secrets of Allah Azza wa Jal. وَاشْتَبَاكُمْ بِقُدْرَتِهِ, and decided on you by means of his power. وَعَزَّكُمْ بِهُدَاهِ, he equipped you with his guidance. And lastly, وَخَصَّكُمْ بِبُرْهَانِهِ, and he selected you with his clear proofs. Allah Azza wa Jal. So you can see that Allah Azza wa Jal did not just chose individuals to be the Khalifa on earth or to be leading the Ummah, but they have many roles and tasks to do. It's not just a Khilafah over people, a political Khilafah, and that's it. You will just walk off. And you collect money, and you collect taxes, you collect, for example, ghanaim, and spoils of war, for example. It's more beyond than that. They have some kind of connection with Allah Azza wa Jal in somehow. So Hujjah, a Khalifa, an Imam must be from Allah Azza wa Jal. The word Khalifa and Imam is mentioned in the Holy Quran, that Allah chooses the Khalifa and the Imam in the Holy Quran. And that's why the ziyarah is mentioning to this fact that the Khilafah should be from Allah Azza wa Jal. And to be istifa, selection, chosen from Allah Azza wa Jal.
Just a quick reminder to all our viewers that this is a live show. We do take in your questions. If you'd like to call into the studio, 023-515-0199. If you'd like to send in a question via WhatsApp, the number should be at the bottom with the QR code, which will take you straight to the page. If you are abroad and you want to call in, you can call in also on the WhatsApp number, you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, please put your questions into the comment section, and inshallah, the technical team will send them on my handy iPad here, inshallah. Sheikh, now let's kick off with a very, very interesting question in regards to wudu. If one fears that if the water for wudu or ghusl is used, her or her dependents or companions will die of thirst or fall ill or face intolerable discomfort due to thirst, in this situation, can they still perform wudu or ghusl?
In this case, because there's a life-threatening situation for the one who wants to perform wudu with the very little water remaining for drinking, then it becomes mandatory and wajib for this individual to switch to the act of tayammum rather than wudu, and basically to keep that water for drinking. Because when it comes to the situation of life-threatening situation, death or severe situation, then of course the hukum changes to secondary hukum, in which one should do tayammum, and to keep that water for drinking.
Shaykhna, it is known that the act of worship that requires wudu, ghusl or tayammum are prohibited upon a woman with menstruation. Are there any acts of worship that do not require wudu, ghusl or tayammum?
Yes, indeed. One can perform the deceased prayer or the Salat al-Mayyit while in the state of the impurity by the woman. So, because Salat al-Mayyit is not Salat, it's actually dua. You stand there, you pray for that individual to be well off in the hereafter. So it's mainly dua, but they call it Salat al-Mayyit. So the ahkam of Salah would not apply on Salat al-Mayyit in terms of purity and other aspects of the ahkam of the actual daily prayers in Salah.
Sheikh, a question from WhatsApp. Assalamu alaikum. We are entering the months now when the differences arise in one's household in regards to the moon sighting, i.e. followers of Khoi versus followers of Sistani. I am a follower of Sayyid Khoi, rahmatullah alayhi, whereas children follow Sayyid Sistani, hafadullah. Can I, on this specific fatwa, only follow Sistani in order to unify one household so that we fast and celebrate Eid on the same day?
The best thing is to contact the office of your marja to see if you can actually switch to the current marja. And overall, when the marja dies and you have to do taqlid of the next living marja, in this case, those masail you can stick with the deceased marja and follow his rules. But for other masail, you have to go back to the living marja. So in such masail, the best thing to go back to the office of your marja and speak to them, to the representative of the living marja, and to see if you can give actually the ijazah permission to actually follow on this mas'ala the living marja. That would be the best option, inshallah.
Another question here. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykhna. Please, when wiping the feet, if our hands move without intention, does that nullify the wudu? Thank you very much. Wow. If you were to do a mas'ah without the intention, is the wudu batil?
You see, the acts of salah or wudu and such like, these are all ibadah. And the ibadah requires intention and niyyah. So whatever you want to do, you have to make sure you have the intention kept in your mind. That I'm doing this masah or this wash, urbatan Allah ta'ala. And it's not something outside the act of the wudu. It's all inside. If you want to cool down let's say your legs, for example, or feet, because it's too hot, then that's different than the acts of ghusl, for example. It's just to cool down or the wudu. I
mean, you have the intention at the beginning, that's one thing. But what if, for example, I wiped my foot unintentionally? So I was going to go do masa like this, and all of a sudden I've touched my foot before I even understood, getting there or so forth. So I didn't mean to do masa, but it's happened. Or my little finger just did a little bit. My little finger did a little bit, not the whole hand. And I'm like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I was meant to do the whole hand. So when the intention wasn't there, but the masa, some sort of masa has already happened, what happens in that situation?
As I've said, for every act you have to have the intention in overall. So the masah should be also done with the intention of masah. So that's important.
Fair enough.
In overall.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Salam.
Can a woman on her period recite more than 7 ayahs of the Holy Quran, or is it makruh to do so?
I've just said before, it's mentioned something in the Ahkam that more than 7 is makruh. As I've said before, that it could be for the mujnab or the ha'il. So in the fiqh, there's mentioning about this issue.
From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
My sister just lost her baby. What can we use Islamically to bring her comfort? So we send our sorrows and our empathy towards your sister there. Losing a child, a young child, is not easy at all. Sheikh, Islamically, dealing with a death of a baby, whether it is a miscarriage or infancy, birth or so forth, Islamically, how do we reconcile, how do we help comfort, especially the mothers who have been, deeply affected by this?
Yes, I witnessed this situation when I was back home when I was a child, and they actually lost a baby, a 6-month-old baby. So what they did actually, all the family gathered in the house of that mother who lost her baby, and they gave her comfort. They used to cook, for example, for her and everything. So if there are relatives or friends who can gather and stay in her house, for example, if it's possible, for example, for 1 or 2 days, give her comfort, talk to her. She needs some kind of mentoring.
I see.
Exactly, yeah, for this purpose.
I see.
And always give her glad tidings that in our narrations of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, that this child will remain on the doorstep of paradise on the day of judgment, and he or she will not enter paradise except asking Allah Azza wa Jal to go with her or with his parents.
I see.
So we have a narration with this regard.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Tomorrow is Laylatul Raghaib,
Exactly.
and there is amal to be done between Maghrib and Isha prayers. We now hear that the narrations for this is very weak. Do we do this amal or not?
Many of the ulama go for the issue or the basis of التسامح في أدلة السنن. Means there's tasamuh, there's a leniency when it comes to these narrations in which we find in Mafatih al-Janan,
Yes.
or other books of ad'iyah by our ulama. And we have narrations with this regard that even if something reached us, but we weren't sure about it, for example, and we did it, Allah will give us the thawab and the reward with His mercy. So inshallah, try to do the a'mal, because many of our ulama would acknowledge this issue, that these ad'iyah and prayers, they're all there, inshallah, accepted. And there's no issue with it. And don't worry about the weakness and so forth.
From YouTube, Sheikhna, can you have a profile picture for social media of one of the imams? It happens a lot during Muharram time. You'll see everyone changes their display picture to one of the events, one of the Musibah, or one of the characters of Karbala, of the companions of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Sheikhna, having one of Aimma, one of their pictures, or even one of the scholars, or any religious picture on your profile pic, is that acceptable?
I mean, there's no prohibition and hurmah in this regard, but what is recommended is to put instead a hadith from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, or a statement with this regard that would attract the others when they see this, let's say a short hadith, for example, that could guide someone to the right path, for example, as a result of this hadith.
Hello, Sheikh. Assalamu alaikum. I tried so hard for over 3 years to get into my higher classes, but it never worked out. I prayed, I put the effort, but I put in the work, yet nothing, any reason. Brother or sister who wrote in, maybe, you can put in effort and time and practice, but sometimes it's not enough. Maybe you need to put in more time, more effort, more practice to get to where you want to get. Praying and dua also helps, but I think, from my experience, Sheikh, and you can add on, the reality is, if you want to get better at something, you just need to spend more time at it. Practice, go over the theories, go over the practicals, and inshallah, definitely you'll become better at it. Even if it's like, hifz, if you're trying to learn a surah off by heart, the more times you recite it, the better you know it. It's plain and simple. You can do dua, Ya Allah, I want to learn the surah, please make it easy for me. But the reality is, you need to put in time and effort, and you will definitely remember the surah eventually. Sheikhna?
Yes, indeed, what you've said is right. Sometimes you may have to change even the subject that you're studying. Sometimes it happens. Some people, let's say, they get excited to study medicine, for example, but they find that it's too difficult, it's too hard. It's not digesting into their minds. So you may have to change the subject, for example, if this wasn't the right subject. It depends, really. Many people changed their career even as a result.
Indeed.
So it depends, really. So you have to do your best, inshallah.
Sheikhna, where there is no heir for a deceased Muslim person in the foreign land, who should take charge of his burial, according to His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani Hafidhullah?
Well, if it's not possible to find somebody who would take care of the burial and funeral, in this case, the issue will be on every, or let's say, wajib kifai, that it's everyone's responsibility and duty. If somebody comes forward and takes care of this issue, then of course it would be dropped from others as a hukum shar'i. Because wajib for everyone to make sure that this Muslim who just died recently is to be buried in the right, shar'i way, and all the ahkam of the deceased should be applied. So if somebody comes forward, then that should drop the task or the duty from other Muslims.
Inshallah. In the case of one who works in a store, some products that are sold contain pork. Is one able to accept the money for pork with the intention of disposing the meat? Is it still considered selling if you are a cashier and not the owner of the business? According to His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sa'id Hakim, Rahmatullah alayh.
The late Sayyid mentions that it is not permissible, as we said before, the exception in selling, in terms of hurma, in selling the pork and alcohol even to the non-Muslims. You cannot sell these two products to anyone.
You're not allowed to sell, you're not allowed to display, you're not allowed to handle, you're not allowed to deliver. Exactly. Even if you get it as a present, which a lot of people do at work or this or that, you can't even give it away, you have to throw it away.
Exactly, yeah, you have to somehow get away with it.
Sheikhna, some women wear false eyelashes on their eyes. What is the ruling when it comes to wudu and ghusl? According to His Eminence, the Grand Ayatollah Sheikh Wahid Khorsani.
Well, initially it's forbidden to wear something that would prevent the reach of water to the skin and to the visible parts of the face. That's one of the issues in which the Sheikh Hafidhullah would mention, that the salah would be batil as a result, because this is an external object.
It's like a barrier, isn't it?
Barrier, yes, exactly.
An obstacle.
And the other issue that is not mentioned here, but it could be an issue, that if it's known to be as zina and beauty, then you have to conceal it. وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنْ. If it's a beauty, then there's ishkal. In showing this beauty in public, that's another ishkal as well.
More questions coming in, Sheikhna, from YouTube. Assalamu alaikum. Is reading books on theology and Islamic studies written by well-known scholars and discussing the same discouraged?
No, you can study these the aqaid books, as they say, but anyhow, if you have enough knowledge to be able to refute some of, let's say, deviant aqaid and beliefs, then that's fine. But if you don't have that capacity or knowledge to be able to refute it, then that's an issue.
It's a thing, Sheikhna. For example, if I hadn't done my theology classes in Hausa, and if I hadn't learned a little bit on Quran and tafsir and so forth, it will be very, very difficult to discuss shafa'a and tawassul with those who say it is totally forbidden, and even those who say it is shirk. If you are someone who likes to be involved in these Shia debates and so forth, but don't have the background knowledge, one can easily be led astray, no?
Exactly, yes, that's the issue. So you have to be in a position that you have the knowledge to compare, at least to be able to, as they say, to be able to choose the right from the wrong. That's important. Otherwise, we have people who have been influenced with these aqaid and ideologies. Eventually they became, na'udhu billah, aqidah, having aqidah without not in the right path.
From YouTube, Sheikhna, is gaining Islamic knowledge only limited for the ulama and those around the ulama, and not for anybody else willing to gain knowledge to improve oneself?
That's not right. The hadith, the prophetic hadith sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions that طلب العلم فريضة على كل مؤمن. That seeking knowledge is wajib on every individual. And other hadith, mu'min and mu'mina, male and female, you must gain knowledge, of course, especially the essential ones in terms of the wudu, salah, aqidah, as you mentioned now. It's important. But to go deep into these, the ahkam or aqidah, of course, you need to go to the centers of the knowledge, to the hawza in Qom or Najaf, for example, and be able to gain more knowledge. But anyhow, you're allowed, of course, to gain general knowledge in Islam. That should be fine.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. From WhatsApp, do Muslim women have to travel with a mahram?
No, that's not something wajib on us to do so. If she is, safe in her travel, she's going through a route in which it's safe, that should be fine. Let's ziyarat or arba'in or hajj, and usually the routes are safe, especially if you go with the group, for example. That should be fine.
Also from YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Can I eat chicken slaughtered with stainless steel knife? I heard that pure iron knife should be used to slaughter animals we eat. Thank you.
It seems to be there's a difference with some ulama with this regard, so you have to go back to your marja to see if he would be strict on this issue that has to be iron or even steel, for example.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. This one, it says, I'm from India. So, assalamu alaikum to all our viewers in India. I hope everything is well over there. And inshallah, you are in our du'as. We understand the political situation, how Muslims are treated there as well. My question is, in the case of janaba, if sperm is not touched with cloth, then also cloth will be najis. Kindly tell me. Okay, if the sperm has not touched the cloth, has the cloth, will it be najis or not?
The najasa takes place if there's a cross-contamination of the liquid, be it blood, urine, or even semen. If that touched the body or the clothes, that part of the body or the clothes becomes najis. And you only have to wash that part of the body or the clothes.
Yes.
And the rest are tahir. So if there's a moist, then of course that means that there's a najasa. You have to purify it.
From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. When talking with my Sunni friend, he asked about the evidence of imamah from the Quran. Can you please tell me how to answer this question?
I've mentioned this many times in the past ahkam shows that we have a couple of verses with this regard. That, for example, Allah says to Ibrahim alayhi salam, Inni ja'iluka lin-nasi imama. I assign you and appoint you as imam. Or ja'alun fil ardi khalifa, that I am appointing a khalifa on earth. And subhanallah, the verses, it doesn't just mention the imam, the word, the phrase imam. It also mention the khalifa as well. So the appointment of imam and khalifa is in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jalla, according to the Quran. So this is very clear. If you go back to the, just search the word imam or khalifa, it will come up the verses in which talk about specific assignments and chose of Allah Azza wa Jalla with this regard.
Ahsan. Sheikhna, we're going to go to a short break. Join us after the break as we continue our discussion here on Ahkam SOS.
I have a question regarding keeping pictures of scholars.
Is it permissible to plant trees by or
Was
over
Islam
the
established
graves?
based on peace and
Is it
non-violence?
permissible to collect donations for charity projects from
Is it permitted to consume canned food imported from non-Muslim
Is there
countries?
an issue for men looking at non-Muslim women?
To have your questions answered live, call in on +44 2035 150199 or WhatsApp us on +44 7415 092155. Alternatively, you can also email us on Ahkam SOS at imamhussein.tv.
Yes, you can send in your questions via the WhatsApp number at the bottom there. You can also call on the WhatsApp number, or you can call live 0203 515 0199. If you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, please send your questions in via the comment section, and inshallah, myself and the Sheikh will be able to discuss and answer your question. We don't need to know your name. We don't need to know where you're asking from. Send in your question, totally anonymous. And it is our duty, inshallah, if we can, to give you your answers. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum.
Sheikhna, we had some questions from last week, which you said you were going to research upon. One of them was if a husband and wife were to, indulge in foreplay and pleasure and so forth, and if marks were left on the bodies, would there be a kafara to pay for that?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. If one of the sides that had the marks on their body forgive the other, then the diya would be dropped. So there's no diya.
Okay.
Or the penalty with this regard.
If they forgive
each other, yes.
Sometimes people can be petty, so please be merciful to your spouse. Also, Sheikhna, there was a question in regards to, I think it was a sister, but it could have been a brother, raised in a Shia family. However, the family wasn't that religious, so they went to the mosque to learn how to pray and so forth. And even though their aqaid and their belief was Shi'i, the practice, the amal, and the salah that they performed was of another madhab. So this a couple of years, this person prayed like a Sunni for a couple of years until they learnt the way, the tariqah of Ahlul Bayt and so forth. The couple of years that they spent praying as a Sunni, do they have to account for that, or is that okay? There's no issue because they didn't know any better?
Well, as I've said before in the previous episode, that if somebody prays in other than the way of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they pray, then the salah will be batil. But anyhow, if this individual was ignorant in the hukum and the ruling of that in this way praying it would cause the salah to be batil,
yes.
He didn't know. He thought that he praying to Allah Azza wa Jal to be in anyhow, even this way, for example. So to be qasir, ignorant in this mas'ala, the salah will be fine. He doesn't need to
repay
the salah. So لا تجب العادة, there's no issue with it, yes.
Ahsantum. Sheikhna, I'm fasting the qada of the month of Ramadan in winter. I commit an act to invalidate my fast in the afternoon. What would be my duty?
If you break your fast in the afternoon of the qada of the month of Ramadan, then you have to feed 10 miskin, 10 individuals, to feed them. So yes, that's the kafara, the penalty.
I see. Okay, more questions are coming from YouTube. And let us go for this one. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Is cosmetic surgery allowed in Shia Islam? If it isn't, isn't it changing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation? Okay, cosmetic surgery is this allowed in Shia Islam? If you do allow it, are you not changing the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had created someone?
No, there's a difference between altering or changing khalqullah Azza wa Jal and to beautify one's, let's say, facial looking and so forth, to enhance the look, for example, of someone's face or even some body parts. The تغيير خلق الله or changing خلق الله is to do with, let's say, playing genetically with that fetus in which he or she will be born without eyes, for example, or without, let's say, legs and hands, for example, or arms. That is the haram, in which you play with the khalq Allah Azza wa Jal, with the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. But to enhance it, that should be fine.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. From YouTube, what is the ruling regarding witchcraft, jinns and exorcism in Islam? Can the jinns inflict diseases to human beings? Can someone bewitch someone? Ma salama. Very, very common question we get here. On Ahkam SOS, and I've said it many times as well, and I think Sheikh will also say it as well, that a lot of what you see or what you hear is exaggerated. We in the school of the Ahlul Bayt, we don't really believe in jinns, what's the word called? When they go inside you and possess. We don't really believe in jinn possession and possessing an individual and so forth. We don't believe in exorcism or things like that. Sheikh, now over to you. I come from a background, and so do you, of a culture where, you know, it's very superstitious. A lot of people do pay attention, and they believe in witchcraft or black magic and summoning jinns and so forth. From your experiences, Sheikhna, and what you've seen in the community, how much of a reality is it? How much importance do we really need to give it?
Well, what you have mentioned is right, correct. There's no position by the jinn. They have no authority to go inside our mind and soul, as you mentioned. But what the Quran mentions very clear, الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس. There's waswasa, so whispering.
Yes.
But not actually penetrating into the soul of someone or someone's body. And that waswasa, of course, one should read ad'iyah. You know, the qalaqil al-arba'a to recite قُلْ يَا الْكَافِرُونَ قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. Every day, always, to repel and remove this kind of, well, ailment, let's say. And of course, one should also refer back to the physicians and psychiatrists and doctors with this regard,
yes,
to seek medical advice.
Unfortunately, I mean, I remember I was discussing this with some of my friends who are also Pakistani and stuff. We were saying that because people are not educated that well, they cannot tell the difference between, you know, if someone has a seizure or an epileptic attack or something like that, they'll think that, oh, there's a jinn possessed in him. We go call the scholar or call the local mu'ammam and so forth. Where it's like, no, you need to get a doctor or an ambulance. This is something serious. Also, sometimes, 9 times out of 10, because of schizophrenia or other mental health issues, they think a jinn has possessed them. Or sometimes it's even drugs and that they are intoxicated and they think, oh, something's happened. But the reality is not the case. So please, if you know someone that's discussing jinns or something, or says that, oh, this person has a jinn in them, let them seek professional medical attention first, and then, you know, investigate and furthermore. From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. If I prayed and realized I was not tahir, or my belt was not tahir, or my wallet's in my pocket, must I repeat the salah?
Was the belt, let's say, blood on it or urine on it? Or
Well, it says non-tahir belt, so I'm assuming it was a belt that wasn't from an animal that had been slaughtered in an Islamic way.
We'll have to see, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. Quran way, I was... okay, so this is a question from someone. I was fasting, and because I was about to faint, I was forced to drink water at the time. I was a Sunni. Please let me know if I have to pay a penalty. I am Shia now.
Well, in overall, if somebody who reaches that stage, of course, he needs to redo the siyam. Of course, it wasn't intentional to pay penalty.
It says I was about to faint.
So he was in extreme situation because of fasting.
Yes.
The fatwa is there that he can actually, to the minimum, drink that water, for example.
And continue the fast.
And continue fast, and then redo that day afterwards.
But there's no kafara to pay, though?
No.
Just a qadha?
Yeah, there's no kafara, as you know, because he wasn't intentionally, he didn't intentionally drink the water. He didn't breach the sanctity of this holy month. He was almost ill, so he drank the water to survive and then continue with his fast and redo it again.
From WhatsApp, Assalamu alaikum. How is the sajda after reciting an ayah of sajda from the Holy Quran done? And if I recite an ayah of sajda in Hayd, can I still perform the sajda, or do I have to skip over the ayah or otherwise?
Let's start from the end. You shouldn't read the ayah sajda in this situation. You have to skip it exactly.
Okay.
You can't read it in this situation.
So you have to be in wudu to do this?
No. But you have to put your head on the sajda, on the place.
You have to
You can recite and say La ilaha illallah haqqan haqqa. La ilaha illallah imanan wa tasdiqa. La ilaha illallah ubudiyatan wa riqqa.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just the sajda. That's the important.
No problem. From YouTube, Assalamu alaikum. The Amal for the first Thursday of Rajab is compulsory. If not, what other things can one do except for prayers, which is mentioned in Mufati al-Jannah?
Basically, these are mustahab amal mainly. We don't have something compulsory or wajib to do in the month of Rajab or Sha'ban. These are all mustahab, from fasting I mentioned the a'mal of this month, just previous episode, if you go back to the previous one. From ghusl, Ziyaratul Hussein alayhi salam, fasting, saying astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu ilayh, saying astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh 70 times, saying la ilaha illallah 1,000 times. These are all mustahabbat to say and do in this month. So there's no wajib except for the holy month of Ramadan, and that is only fasting. The rest is all mustahab. You know, reciting the whole Quran, Holy Quran, Ad'iyah, Abi Hamza, Dua, Jawshan. These are all mustahab. So the main thing is the fasting of this holy month of Ramadan. Otherwise, the rest is mustahab.
Ahsan. Thank you very much, Sheikhna. And thank you to all the viewers for joining us on this episode of Ahkam SOS. If you sent in your question and we didn't answer it, we do apologize because we had a lot of questions coming in and we're running out of time. However, those questions will be rolled over onto Monday's episode, which will be here on Imam Hussein TV 3, 7 p.m, Sky Channel 789. In the meantime, have a good week and please remember us doing your du'as and your amal in this holy month of Rajab, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
As lovers of the Ahlul Bayt, we all have an inclination to the epitome of love. When we rejoice, when times are hard, whatever stage of life we are in, we all yearn to be in one special place. We all wish